All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Between the Lines podcast, episode 8. I'm coming back. I'm sorry I missed out on last week, dealing with some issues, but I'm good to be back here with Michael again. And I'm just ready to get this podcast going. And we're just gonna jump right into it. Jets versus Bengals. Mike, I know you got some stuff you want to talk about in this one. Let's get it going.
Yeah, definitely a good game from both teams. We talked about it off the podcast. It's good for a head coach to get his first win. We've obviously known about it. Dave Canales, Matt Rule, Frank Wright. We know what it's like for a struggling first time head coach to kind of try to find his footing in the NFL, and it definitely helps when you beat a Bengals team who's kind of on the rise or trying to get on the rise again. Like we said before off the podcast, Aaron Glenn trying to make a decision throughout the week who his quarterback was going to be. Was it going to be Justin Fields? Was it going to be Tyrod Taylor? Obviously, he went with Fields, and Fields delivered 21 for 32, 244 yards, a touchdown, added 31 yards on the ground. But the rushing attack really helped him out yesterday. Brees Hall, 18 carries, 133 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Isaiah Davis backed him up with 7 carries, 65 yards, 109 total. But the New York Jets as a whole, 502 total yards on offense. 254 of those was rushing. They're now the third-ranked rushing offense attack in the NFL. Aaron Glenn, just trying to find his foot in the NFL, like we said, trying to find his footing as a first-time head coach. It's not easy. It can be hard. It can be a struggle. But I watched his post-game speech in the locker room, and it seems like they're bought in there, man. They're trying to find their place in the NFL and their place in a tough division, the AFC East. But Aaron Glenn just seems to have that locker room right now. The players were cheering. He was yelling. He said the right things. And you can respect a guy like that. Obviously, Dan Campbell spoke very highly of Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, both as coordinators. And obviously, they both seem to be very respected by their players. Chicago seems to be doing very well with Ben Johnson. And now, the Jets are trying to find their spot with Aaron Glenn. And I think Aaron Glenn will be all right. I don't think he's a one-and-done head coach. I think they're going to give him a little bit of time. We'll see what they do when it comes down to it at the end of the year. And I don't think they make the playoffs, obviously, but where do you fit in the draft order? If you want a quarterback, you want to be up higher to get the best of the best. But if you think Justin Fields can keep it going as your quarterback one, he is under a 3-year contract, so he has 2 more years after this. You're paying him $50 million. So we'll see how he does over the rest of the year. Obviously he was in talks of not even being the quarterback this week until Aaron Glenn finally named him on Saturday. But don't take away anything from the Bengals either. The Bengals, like I said, we know their defense has been bad, and it showed on Sunday. Allowing 39 points to a Jets team who could only score maybe 10 the last 2 weeks in a row. But Flacco seems to be the guy they found that can fill in that gap between Burrow's injury. Flacco 21 for 34, 223 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's not really turning the ball over like Jake Browning was. Jake Browning really just turned the ball over too much. He wasn't going to produce with 2 top wide receivers and a good backfield in Chase Brown. He wasn't really producing, so they had to find a guy, and they went with the former Super Bowl quarterback, the vet, the 41-year-old Joe Flacco. And speaking of the backfield, just like Brees Hall and Isaiah Davis for the Jets, Chase Brown and Samaj P. Ryan, they had a great game as well. Chase Brown, 12 carries, 73 yards, 105 total, and 2 touchdowns. And then Samaj P. Ryan backs him up with 9 carries, 94 yards, averaging a first down every rush. And he added a touchdown as well. But the name of the game is Jamar Chase. That dude is electric. That dude's awesome. He is maybe the best wide receiver in the NFL in some people's minds. 12 receptions, 91 yards. And Joe Burrow, not Joe Burrow, but my apologies. Joe Flacco looked his way 19 times. He had over 20 targets last week and now 19 this week. But T. Higgins, man, only 1 catch for 44 yards, but he only had 2 targets. He didn't really seem like Joe Flacco. Sorry, I just got Joe Burrow in my head right now, but it doesn't seem like Joe Flacco could find him yesterday. He wasn't looking his way. I think they were really relying on the run game yesterday, and obviously he knows Jamar Chase can make plays happen with the ball in his hands. We all know that. He's a very good wide receiver, very, very talented. Just give him the ball in space and let him go to work. Throw the ball up, let him go get it. And Jamar Chase is that guy. We know he might be, in some people's minds, the number one wide receiver in the NFL. And when he does this every week, when you can look at him 20 times and him produce and catch over half of his targets, I don't blame him from looking his way. Cincinnati, 400 yards total on offense. 181 of those was rushing. So both teams had very high numbers offensively. Obviously, 39-38 game. Your score, that's 80 points combined. Both had 900 yards combined. 900 on the dot, actually. 900 yards combined. I mean, 800 yards combined. 800 yards combined. No, that's 900. 900 yards combined. And almost 400 of those was rushing yards. So shout out to both backfields. Shout out to both O-lines. They were moving the ball up, on the ground. And it helps when you have a guy, both quarterbacks who are, one, Joe Flacco, who's 41 years old guy, not many more years in the league, just trying to fill in that gap at quarterback. And then Justin Fields, who is competing for his job just a few days ago. So when you can have a backfield that can back up your quarterback, and, if your run game's doing well, it opens up the pass game. So it showed for both teams yesterday. Both offenses looked very good, so shout out to both offensive coordinators. Shout out to both teams, Aaron Glenn. Shout out to Zach Taylor. But, New York, just Aaron Glenn just outcoached Zach Taylor in the end. And then shout out to Aaron Glenn, man. Statement win for his first win of his NFL head coaching career. I'm proud of Aaron Glenn, man. I like his energy. I love seeing him on the sidelines getting all fired up. I love listening to his post game speech. Obviously we beat the Jets 13-6 last week, and I talked about that on the podcast last week. But shout out Aaron Glenn, man. Congratulations on your first win. Hope for many more. I don't want to see anybody do bad, except for the Falcons, Bucks, and the Saints. But shout out Aaron Glenn. I hope you do well, my man. Steve Wilkes too. I have all the love for Steve Wilkes, all the love in the world for Steve Wilkes. He probably gave me the most joyous moments of being a Panther fan in the last 5 years. Some of those moments when he was coaching as the interim head coach was pretty awesome. The protect the bank. Just being in that environment. Steve Wilkes brought a lot to Carolina. He's a Carolina guy, App State guy. So I hope he does well. Hope Aaron Glenn does well. And, I like Justin Fields as well. So hope they all do well. We'll be definitely keeping an eye on the Jets.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And also just to point out, the Jets were also down, by 2 scores in this game as well. And then they had to, scratch and claw, to come and, win this game. And then they actually took the lead by Breece Hall, who threw a touchdown pass in the back right corner of the end zone. And so that was like kind of the go-ahead score right there to get him in the league. And then, their defense, when it mattered most, they came up and prevailed on that 4th down stop. Just prevent Cincinnati from getting into field goal range, which is really hard to do. So, obviously, shout out to the defense on the last, possession of the game, really getting them that win right there. And then also just really quickly going on the Bengals side, now they're 3-5. So, and then having a loss like this to the Jets kind of derails their playoff hopes a little bit, but they're not entirely out of it yet, considering
Right.
the Steelers losing yesterday as well. So I don't know, kind of something right there. But 3-5, this was a game that you had to get to go to 500. So having this one hurts, and the schedule's not going to be easier as well. So, if you're a Bengals fan, kind of just, where do you go from here? I mean, I know it's not the end of the world considering, you're only 3-5. It's not like you're, 1-7 or something like that. But, Bengals, they really need to pick it up and whatnot. And this one hurts if you're a fan. So,
Yeah, for
I
sure.
want to
For sure.
add out there. Next topic on the podcast. This is, I don't know how long this topic is going to be, but I just want to point it out. 10 blowout games
Okay,
yesterday.
about that. I looked up. Are you talking about yesterday, just yesterday, or are you talking about Thursday as well? Because I added the Chargers blowout win against Minnesota on Thursday as well.
Oh, I didn't even add the Chargers one.
Oh. Then I only got 8 yesterday. Can you name them off for me? What do you count as a blowout?
Like, I count a blowout as, more than, 10 points.
Okay, then yeah. Okay, I got you. Because I got okay. You mean mine off?
Yeah.
Okay, I got the Los Angeles Chargers beating the Minnesota Vikings on Thursday night, 37-10. Obviously, I got Buffalo beating the crap out of us, 40-9. Denver beating Dallas, 44-24. Indianapolis beating Tennessee, 38-14. Tampa Bay beat New Orleans, 23-3. This game I loved right here. Miami beating Atlanta, 34-10. Baltimore beating Chicago, 30-16. New England dominating Cleveland, 32-13. And then Philly beating New York, 38-20. But you must have got the Texans game in there too, didn't you?
Yeah. I pretty much
What was
had
it?
all.
Was
Huh?
that 12 points? Was that 12 points?
I think it was 15-26. So something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. So 11 points. I thought it was 12, but it was 11. You're right. You're right.
Nah, I think I think all of the games, in my opinion, were like blowouts beside the Jets one.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt. Like I think
Or like
if
at
you
least
explain
wasn't close. At least
if you explain a blowout as not being competitive in the last 6 minutes or like the last quarter, then yeah, no doubt there was 10 blowout games yesterday.
yeah.
Because most of these games are two possession games at the end of the game, and it's not like they scored with under like 2 minutes to go. Like these teams had no chance. Half these teams had no chance. Denver dominated Dallas. Buffalo dominated us. The Chargers dominated Minnesota. Indianapolis killed Tennessee. New Orleans had no chance against Tampa Bay. Miami, Tua Tagovailoa with one eye, won by 24 points. Baltimore, hey, I called that one. I called Baltimore beating Chicago. I didn't do it just because the Chicago fans always talk junk on Twitter. I did it because Baltimore was due for a win, and Harbaugh doesn't lose that many games in a row. And then obviously Drake May is just Drake May. I said it before. We can pull up the receipts on Instagram. I told you he's the best quarterback that came out of that draft class, and I'm a Duke fan saying that. I'm a Duke fan. I'm a Duke fan that watched him kill us for 2 years. Literally watched him and like sunk my head into my hands because he would make some magic out of nothing and beat us. But that kid is just special. Love him so much. I see his wife all the time on TikTok. They just seem like great people. He's a great football player. The city of New England loves him. And then obviously, sad for our guy Cam Scattaboo. He's done for the year, dislocated ankle. But I don't think they had any chance yesterday anyway. Philly always seems to do that to New York, 38-20. So, like you said, a lot of blowout games, man. It wasn't really a competitive Sunday slate in the NFL. It wasn't something that people were like glued to their seats like we've talked about the last few weeks. And that's obviously why we don't have a lot of like huge topics to talk about, because what are you going to talk about? All these teams getting blown out? Like, it's not fun to talk about that because and then it's going to be a one-sided topic. But being able to point out all the games at one time is pretty interesting to see. There's only 13 games in the NFL this whole week, counting Thursday to tonight against the Commanders and the Chiefs, and 11 of those were counting as blowouts. The only one that hasn't been a blowout yet is the Jets and the Bengals, which we just talked about in our last topic. So, very lopsided week in the NFL, Week 8. It was a very weird week. A lot of you don't really like to see that in the NFL. You like to see competitive games. That's what kind of like people love about college football on Saturdays is there's always a competitive game, something to watch. But obviously, when you only have 10 games on or 11 games on in one day, the number of games you might see that are interesting is kind of lower. And also, you're getting deeper in the NFL season, so some teams are just levels above other teams. There's not many games on this week that I thought were people competing against other good teams. Indianapolis versus Tennessee, we obviously knew who was going to win that one. New England and Cleveland's they're here. Philly and New York's here. Tampa Bay and New Orleans is here. I guess you could say Buffalo and Carolina's here. Denver and Dallas, I think, is here right now. So some lopsided teams. Minnesota obviously having quarterback troubles. They're Carson Wentz going on IR. JJ McCarthy should be back this week. But like you said, man, just a lot of blowouts, man. Not a very enjoyable Sunday to watch if you want to watch close games and be on the edge of your seat. A lot of just lopsided victories. So the winning teams, I know they definitely enjoy that. I enjoy if the Carolina Panthers were to blow the team out, but it's not fun being on the wrong side of that. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention it was last week on Monday Night Football. It was the Seahawks and the Texans. Even though it was a one score game, it didn't feel like a one score game. Like the whole
Oh, it
game
did. No,
felt
no,
like
no, no,
Seattle.
no.
It felt like Seattle was just like on them the whole game, like in the
Oh, for
Texans didn't
sure.
have a chance. That's what it felt like if you watched the game.
Yeah,
But
for sure. I did. I did. Yeah.
but if someone just looked at the box score and they just saw what happened, it'd be like, oh, so one score loss, one score game loss, or a position, yeah, whatever. And but yeah, that Seahawks defense is no joke. Just set this one out there. But
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
yeah, and then off to the next topic. Um, this is probably your favorite one, Bo Nix.
Oh,
Bo
yes. Yes,
Bo
yes, yes.
Bo Nix
Um,
going off against the Dallas Cowboys. He threw for 247 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. Even though the interception was on the first drive of the game for Denver, and after that he played, lights out. Um, and he was very accurate all game. There was a there was a series where he threw one to right in the back of the or right in the middle of the end zone, and then but it was like out of bounds. I think the player's foot was out of bounds, and and then the next play he threw it right over the defender in the middle, and then but Corliss Sutton just like dropped it like chest or whatever.
yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
But he was very accurate all game, and
Oh, for sure.
that's what we were seeing when he was with Oregon, in college. So bringing it back into the NFL, with this Sean Payton offense, and I'm impressed by Denver. I really am. I think they have the tools to win the AFC West if they continue to play like this. Troy Franklin taking a big leap in this offense. You know, he got that, you got the Oregon connection going on there. And then, obviously we know what Cortland Sutton can do. I think he's taken, big leaps, leap by year, and I think Bo Nix really elevated his play. He's not just that deep threat guy anymore. He's more of a guy that, he can yak the ball. He can, run those intermediate routes. And he showed those on both, levels yesterday during Dallas. And granted it was against the Matt Eberflus defense. I'm pretty sure anyone can score on them, but still very impressive. Regardless. Um, I know you're high on Bo Nix, and I know you have some
Oh,
thoughts on him.
yeah, for sure. Like we talked about yesterday, and we've talked about a lot. I think Drake May was the best quarterback to come out of his draft class, and actually, I said Bo Nix. I mean, Bo Nix is the best quarterback to come out of his draft class. You can still see me, right?
Yeah,
Okay. I just want to pull this up. This is only a second year. Obviously, the sample size is small because there's not been many. Not been. There's only their second year, but I said, and we can pull up the receipts. I said Drake May and Bo Nix were the two best quarterbacks to come out of this quarterback draft class in 2024. Six quarterbacks were drafted in the first round. Caleb Williams went first overall. Jaden Daniels went two overall. Drake May went number three overall. Michael Penix down in Atlanta went eight overall. J.J. McCarthy went 10 overall. And then Bo Nix obviously went 12th overall to Denver. So six quarterbacks taken in the first 12 picks. So half the first 12 picks were quarterbacks. Um, very good quarterbacks come out of this draft. I think this draft is going to be very good for the future of the NFL. Very good talent came out of this draft from all positions. But like I said, I think that Bo Nix and Drake May are the two best to come out of this draft class. You can say what you want. I think Jaden Daniels is very talented. I think J.J. McCarthy's talented. Michael Penix seems to be the guy that Atlanta feels like is their future guy. Caleb Williams I don't really know how I feel about Caleb Williams yet. I think that I think he'll do well with Ben Johnson. I think Ben Johnson gets the most out of his quarterbacks. But we'll see what he does there in Chicago. I think he's doing very well this season. So all quarterbacks are doing very well in their respective places. J.J. McCarthy obviously hurt right now. He's supposed to be back this week. He was hurt all last year. Didn't play at all his rookie year. He's only played a few games, a select few games this year, and he's looked pretty decent, obviously. But when you have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison as your wide receivers, it kind of changes things. I think most starting quarterbacks in the NFL or quarterbacks in the NFL in general could do pretty decent with the cream of crop that he has, especially Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason in the backfield. But again, I will stand on this hill. I'll die on this hill. I do think that Bo Nix and Drake May are the two best quarterbacks to come out of this draft class, the 2024 draft class. It was a very loaded draft class. The 2025 draft class was not. You really can't. I guess you could say Cam Ward and Jackson Dart are the two guys that are really the main guys right now in the NFL who came from the 2025 draft class. Obviously, there's some other guys. Dylan Gabriel came from that class, so we'll see. But the two guys that are really talked about the most is Cam Ward, obviously he's the number one pick, and then Jackson Dart, who's in New York doing very well under Brian Dable. I think he's going to be a very talented guy. I think he's going to dominate. I think Cam Ward can do well too. I'll be honest with you. I like Cam Ward. I like his style of play. I think he has just been given the short end of the stick. When you're the number one pick, you go to the worst team, and we all know that. But I think if he can get a good coach in there who can lead him and get behind him and just say, hey, look, we got your back. This team is your team, and we got your back. Let's go make some magic happen. I think Cam Ward can make that happen. I think Mario Cristobal, the Miami head coach, was really involved with him and really bought into him, and I think he done well under him. So if you can get a guy like that who just believes in the kid wants to be believed in, put the pieces around him. It's going to be it's going to be a rebuild for sure. Tennessee might have a dumpster fire at the trade deadline in a week. But I think Cam Ward will do very well. But back to Bo Nix, man. Like I said, I think him and Drake May are the best, quarterbacks to come out of the 2024 draft class. Like you said, 19 for 29 yesterday, 247 yards, 4 touchdowns, only 1 interception. Denver is 6-2. Sean Payton has them at 6-2 and first in the AFC West. I think, like you said, they could win the AFC West. But I think it's a very talented AFC West. The top 3, like we said last week or 2 weeks ago. The top 3 in the AFC West with the Broncos, the Chiefs, and the Chargers. That's a very, very 3 good, very teams in the AFC West. 3 teams that I think can make the playoffs. But I think Denver has a very good chance to win it. They have the Texans, the Raiders, and the Chiefs up next. The next 3. That's 3 winnable games. I could put them at 9-2 going into week 11, week 12, and. Sean Payton is obviously a Super Bowl winning coach. He's had Drew Brees as his quarterback. He knows what it's like to develop quarterbacks. He knows what it's like to get the most out of his quarterbacks, and I think he is getting the most out of Bo Nix. He trusted in him early. He was a 12th overall pick. Kind of needed a quarterback after Russell Wilson. They gave the reins to Bo Nix, and I think he's taking the bull by the horns, and he's really doing well. I'm very proud of him. Like I said, I've been high on him from the get-go. Him and Drake May both. We can obviously, like I said, you can back me up, but we can pull up the receipts if anybody wanted to see them. But yeah, I've always been high on these 2 guys. It's not something new. It's something I've always said, and I'll always say it. I'll die on this hill. Bo Nix may be the best quarterback in this draft, but Drake May is up there with him. I think both of them are going to be very good quarterbacks for their respective franchises. They both have very good head coaches. Sean Payton, like I said, Super Bowl winning head coach Mike Vrabel should have never been fired in Tennessee. They gave up on him way too soon. When it got a little rocky and a little rough, little speed bumps, they sent him out the door, and obviously we see how that's gone for them. But 2 of them are very well-respected head coaches. Like I said, Drake May even said in the locker room the other week, "We love playing for you, Coach." They love playing for him in New England. Bo Nix and the Broncos love playing for Sean Payton. And both those guys are going to succeed very well, and I couldn't be more proud, man. I love Bo Nix. I love his style of play. I love his Christian-like faith. I love him talking about his faith all the time. He's very bought into the Lord, and I love that he's not afraid to show that. And I can get behind this guy all day, every day. Seventh in the NFL in passing yards, 1,803, and he's fifth in the NFL in passing touchdowns. He already has 15 through 8 weeks. Right now he's on pace for almost 30 touchdowns and almost 4,000 yards passing, and that's just really impressive. That is a testament to what Sean Payton's doing in Denver and what he's getting out of his sophomore quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with you on some things that you said during that. You mentioned, I agree, everything that you said about Bo Nix, like how he's good he is and whatnot, and what he's doing in Denver. But when you mentioned the quarterbacks in that draft class, I only see two quarterbacks in that class that I view as like long-term options, in my opinion. No, no, three. I'm gonna say three. Three
Okay, who's in
quarterbacks
third?
out of that. You got Drake May, Bo Nix, and Caleb Williams. I think those are the three that are like long-term quarterbacks for their respective teams.
Okay,
And
hey, let's get into a topic right now then. Okay,
and if
I like.
we're gonna go from one, and if we're gonna like rank these quarterbacks, I'm gonna put
Let's rank them. Good.
Drake May, Bo Nix in the same tier. I think they're in the same tier. I think if you want to be technical and put them in different ones, I think Drake May would be slightly above him, just because
Ooh,
I think he's a little bit better at processing defenses than Bo Nix is.
ooh. Okay, okay,
Um,
okay, okay, okay.
that's
I
my
respect it.
that's my only like thing that I would have him over Bo Nix, but I think both of them are similar in different ways. They can both run the ball very well, but I think Drake May is better at processing defenses and getting the ball out quicker. So that's like the only reason why I would have him up there. But they're like 1A, 1B if you ask me. Um, Caleb Williams in like B tier, Jaden Daniels in like I want to put him. You know how I feel about Jaden Daniels, but I want to put him like based off his rookie year. And like some of what this year because he right now he's currently dealing with an injury, but he played the other week, and then he also missed the other couple other weeks before that. So
Yeah.
kind of like on and off right now. But right now at the moment, I will put him in C tier, C tier at the moment. Even though he had a good rookie season last year, but the sophomore slumps can be are real. Um, and then Michael Penix, you said he was like good, great.
No, I didn't say he was great. I didn't say he was great. I said he could be okay.
Well, I don't think so. If we're being real, I'm putting Michael Penix in like D tier. This man is like
Yeah, I don't think he's good right now, but I mean,
if his check down Bijan Robinson isn't there, he's a ghost. Like I'm being real, and I watched film on this guy like literally the other day, and I was like, I mean, I think he's a one read quarterback in my opinion. I think if the man's not there, then then he just falls apart. Um, a real good example of it was against Carolina. Like that was a real perfect example because he looked one way, and then if it's not there, check down to Bijan Robinson. If the check down is not there, it's you know, nothing's going on. And I feel like with him being left-handed as well, it kind of limits him to a lot of things. Um, so I don't know. I'm just really not as high as him. A lot of people is because I always see on Twitter and all these like ESPN outlets, they have him as like a top 20 quarterback, and I'm like just blasphemous right now because of
yeah,
that. I just don't see the hype in him. I'm not gonna lie, and we've already seen him like a couple of times, a little bit last year and this year, but I'm not impressed with the man. I'm gonna be honest. And then JJ McCarthy, he's like in D tier as well, only because the sample size isn't there. Like we've only seen him in 2 games this year. That's it. He was out last year, and he's only played 2 games this year. And the 2 games that he's played, it's like very mediocre, if that. He played very bad on national television. His first game against the Chicago Bears, and then his next game, he also played very bad. I forgot who they played, but I remember watching that game. And then after that, he was injured, and now I think they're gonna start him again this week like you said, due to Carson Wentz being out. But that I'm only putting him that low just because of the sample size. I gotta see like a full, you know, 16, 17 games to like get that to get a full review. But that's him right there. And then, am I missing someone else, or did I cover everybody? Bo Nix, Drake May, Caleb Williams, McCarthy, Penix. That's five.
Bonix, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Penix, and McCarthy. That's six.
Okay, okay, yeah. So that's kind of my
If
where
I
I'm
ranked
at.
them, okay. If I ranked them right now, no bias, straight up, I agree with you. A tier, Bo Nix and Drake May. Obviously, I think I'm gonna put Bo Nix ahead of Drake May a little bit. You put Drake May ahead of Bo Nix a little bit. Neither here nor there. They're both tier A. They're both together. Okay. Um, tier B. I'm actually gonna. This is gonna piss you off, but I'm gonna put Jaden Daniels in tier B, only because I think he had an exceptional rookie year. We haven't seen that many quarterbacks have a great rookie year like him. Obviously, you can't control injuries most of the time, so he's injured right now. Marcus Mariota is actually playing right now. That's what I've been fiddling around with on the computer. I've been trying to keep up with the game. So don't want anybody to think that I'm like just fooling off. I'm trying to keep up with the game. I'm a football guy through and through. But just score update for everybody. Kansas City's up 7-0. The B tier, I'm gonna put Jaden Daniels, and the C tier, I'm gonna put Caleb Williams in the C tier. He's got to prove it to me. Obviously, right now Ben Johnson's having him playing well, but last year I wasn't really impressed with him. I think he struggled a lot. Obviously, Matt Eberflus was his head coach. I won't put him down completely. I'm gonna put a D tier. I'm gonna put JJ McCarthy. I think he's done very well in the few games he's played. But again, he's going to have to prove it. He didn't play all last year. He's only played a few games this year. He's hurt. And, I said I think Michael Penix can be good. I said I think he can be good. Obviously, he has the pieces around. What I mean by that is he has the pieces around him to be good. Okay? Obviously, he can put up points. Kirk Cousins is not the guy. Michael Penix can do it. I'm not saying he can't. I think he can do it. He has the pieces around him to do it. You have Bijan Robinson, Drake London, you have Kyle Pitts, you have Darnell Mooney. You have the pieces around you to do it. I'm not saying he is going to do it, but I'm gonna put him in D tier as well. He's going to have to prove it to me too. Right now, he's not up there for me. I wasn't trying to gas him up or anything. I wasn't trying to make him seem like he was a great guy or a great quarterback. He might be a great guy. I don't know him personally, but I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think he could just be a good quarterback. But like I said, he's going to have to prove it to me. Both of them. So right now, A tier is going to be Drake and Bo. B tier is Jaden Daniels. C tier is Caleb Williams. And then Michael Penix and J.J. McCarthy are in the D tier. They're the prove it tier for me. I'm going to put them as the P tier. That's what it's going to be, the P tier. Prove it to me tier. Yeah, you got to prove it to me. So, yeah, I'm glad we could agree to disagree, and so it shows all the fans and all the viewers that we don't agree on everything. We disagree a lot of times. Trust me, I could pull up our Instagram DMs.
Yo, I need to see the footage of you when saying JJ McCarthy's been playing good. I need to see those games. Show me the two games that he's been playing that he played good in. Show me the two games right now.
I can. Let me pull it up. Do you not watch football like me, bro?
Bro, I literally watched his first game. So if I'm not mistaken, I could have sworn he threw multiple picks his first game.
No, he threw 2 passing touchdowns and an interception, and then one. They beat the Bears his first game. He was 13 for 20. 2 touchdowns. 1 rushing touchdown. He had 3 touchdowns in total.
I don't know. I think the stats are kind of deflating.
All right, the guy's got to get into more games, dude.
All right, who does Minnesota play this week?
Crap, the Lions in
The
Detroit.
Lions. Yeah. So prove it to me then. Prove it to me then.
He's literally in my prove it to me tier. I literally just said that.
Prove it to me then. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. But if
Dude,
he
great
plays like,
segment. I love that segment right there. That was a good segment.
yeah, I do too.
Okay,
Um.
we
All right.
moving on to Bills and Panthers.
Yeah. Bills
Watch this.
Panthers.
We talk about this crap game.
Yeah. Lead us into it. Yeah. Yes. Oh, I have a lot to say about this game. Okay, so obviously, everyone's talking about Andy Dalton. We can blame Andy Dalton, all we want, that's fine. But I think a lot of people aren't putting the blame on Dave Canales as much as it is put on Andy Dalton. Yes, Andy Dalton played trash yesterday. Yes, he threw an interception and he pump faked the ball like 5 times. What quarterback pump fakes the ball 5 times? And that led us to him getting sacked and all that stuff. Um, so yeah, we can blame all that, but let's look at Dave Canales a little bit. Like just because we won 3 straight games before this one doesn't mean he's off the edge. Like he's still showing at times that you know he is still in his rookie year of coaching. Like, and there's like things that he needs to clean up, like the situation at running back. You're an offensive minded head coach, and you're like over here struggling, be having to like find a balance of getting which running back the touches and the snaps and whatnot. Rico Dowdle only had like what I say earlier, it was like 20 something, 33 snap offensive snaps compared to Chuba, who had like I think like almost like double his or whatever. And but basically what I'm saying is you don't have a guy who only had 8 carries yesterday for 54 yards. You don't take that guy and like basically almost like semi bench him when he just had over 200 scrimmage yards in back-to-back games, and is like one of the sole reasons of why we won those games. And just because Chuba Hubbard, you're good friends with Chuba Hubbard, and and all that stuff, you get him back. You want to start him over him? What? That's what David Diamond would say. What? Like, like, like. But like, yeah, man, it just doesn't make sense to me, and I voiced it out on Twitter earlier today, and because I was so upset about it, and it just doesn't make sense. You don't stop feeding the hot hand, which is Rico Dowdle, and if I'm him, I'm pissed. I'm mad. Like I just had over 200 scrimmage yards back-to-back games, and I'm over here getting benched for someone coming off of an injury, and I'm putting up more yards on less carries in back-to-back games even with him in the lineup. Like we have to fix that, and it starts this week against Green Bay because this is a must-win game, and the next 3 games, including this one, these are all these are must-win games. You know, before we have that Monday night football game against San Francisco, and if we really want to be taken seriously, that's this and we want to be competitive going 7-4 and going into prime time. you know that I feel like that is key, and I feel like not a lot of people are really looking at that right now, because that's something that I'm looking at. Like we could really, if we can really be competitive in these 3 games. I'm not saying we can win these games, but we can really be competitive and win these games if we make the right adjustments and decisions. And Dave Canales has to be smarter with that, because oh, he's saying the most basic answers like, "Oh, we're gonna watch film. We're gonna watch the film, guys." Like, of course you're gonna watch the film. Everybody watches the film, but just because you watch the film, are you making changes or no? Because if you're not gonna make any changes, then like, what are we doing here? So, you know, I think Rico Dowdle has a good chance of starting this week because what Dave Canal said on the presser this week. He said they're gonna talk as a staff and see what happens. Um, so I feel like if Rico Dowdle is starting, I think he'll give us a good chance at getting the offense going. Especially if Bryce Young comes back. So hopefully hopefully I kind of addressed about the running back situation right there. And it's not like I hate Chuba Hubbard or anything. It's not like I don't dislike him. But when you have a hot running back right now who last time I checked was third in rushing in the NFL just off those 2 games alone, you know, you got to feed him. I don't know what's so difficult about it. Um, so let's just go. Let's go. Um, He just needs to quit being soft. That's what he needs to do. Yeah, and I also wanted to point out to mention, yeah, even though Buffalo was starting like plus territory like almost every time, I still feel like they're like they're off. Shout out their offensive line. Their O line is huge. Like Spencer Brown, that dude's like 6'8", 6'9". I think he was like right tackle. Um, that dude's a freaking beast. I saw him like, blocking and doing whatever in the run game. Like the majority of the time I was watching them on offense, like their O line is huge. So I don't know. Even if they was like starting in like regular positions and whatnot, I still feel like their run game would have been the same regardless. Uh, so I don't know. So our run defense was also just non-existent. Dalvin Cook was averaging over a first down every every run. So it was just pretty. The what? I meant James Cook. My fault. Yeah, they're brothers. My fault. Uh, but yeah, like it's for James Cook, it'd be like 7 yards, 8 yards, 10 yards, and then he'd rip one right there. So and it was always those tosses. You had this guards pulling and whatnot, and it was free eats right there. So that and on that 64-yard rip, uh Morig had a one-on-one opportunity to stop the run right there, but he just pissed his pants right there, and he just yeah. So yeah, yeah. I mean, just the defense was it was just an overall bad performance on for the majority of everybody. I mean, I think T Mac's a stud, bro. Like that dude's a stud. When he got the opportunities, he didn't really disappoint. Um, and obviously, I feel like if we had Bryce Young, whatever, I think we could have been competitive. Nico on Elite Takes, he on Twitter and whatnot. He he had us upsetting the Bills because he thought we could uh keep it competitive. But this was if I don't know if this was he was saying if Bryce was going to play or not. I couldn't remember, but if Andy Dalton didn't make those mistakes and whatnot, feel like we could have been competitive and whatnot. So it just sucks because the game was pretty much over after like the second quarter. So I don't know. There was just no coming back from that. But we move on to the next topic, which is kind of similar to this one. Predictions about Green Bay. I watched the game last night against the Steelers. Um, we mentioned earlier in the podcast before we struggled against tight ends and Kraft. Uh, yeah, Tucker Kraft. Yeah, he's playing like a top five tight end right now in the league. Um, and so I feel like the number one game plan should be around Tucker Kraft right there. Evero needs the game plan right there. So if we want to have a chance, and we have to get to the quarterback, we only got to Josh Allen like twice. But it really took us for like forever to get to him. Like he was scrambling for like 5 seconds, like on those times that we did get him. And Jordan Love gets the ball out quick. He's a you know guy that just gets it out quick. Doesn't really have time to get pressured. So and we have to do that if we want to win this game. I feel like that's key. We can't let Jordan Love have all the time in the world because he's gonna find someone. I just know it for a fact because our defense is not gonna hold up for that long. Um, and we need to hold Tucker Craft. I know they have guys on the outside like Romeo Dobbs, Wicks, and Christian Watson, who's coming back. From I think it was a suspension. They're getting their guys back, so they obviously have talent in the receiver position, one of the best in the league. So it's gonna be. I'm focusing on the defense for us this week. We really have to step up. It's on the road, so it's going to be even harder. And when we move to the offensive side of the ball, um, they obviously have guys everywhere that we have to look at. Obviously, the number one guy is Michael Parsons. I'm not actually worried about Michael Parsons. I'm gonna be real. I'm not really too worried about him. Obviously, he's a game wrecker. He could change the game at any moment, but you know, he even though he played well, yesterday, I think I think our O linemen, well, actually, since we're down a couple of linemen, I don't know, it may be hard. But I think if we have protection up front, then we can really uh, you know, do well on offense if Bryce Young is playing. Um, but like I said, we Rico Dowdle needs to get the ball and get us going in the run game. Have him starting, Dave. Um, as far as predictions, um, I think if Rico starts, I think he gets a touchdown, and then I'm not gonna say who wins just yet because I don't know if Bryce is gonna start yet or not. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now with this game. I already said it before, like this is a must-win game, so they didn't need to throw the ball. They didn't need to throw the ball. I don't think we should trade Chuba. I think just split the carries into 70% for Rico Dowdle, 30% for Chuba, just like Detroit does it. Just like Detroit does it. And it's that simple. Just like Detroit does it. So, um, yeah, just like that. That's what I was saying. But yeah, must win game against Green Bay. Um, and we'll talk about it more, heading into the week and depending on Bryce Young's status and, injury report on Wednesday, and all that stuff. Final topic of the podcast, and I've been excited for this one because I just came up with it today. Welcome to Buy or Sell Hot Takes with me and you. So pretty much the name of it, we each have three hot takes. We're either, and if we agree with, and we're gonna say ours respectively, and we're gonna say buy or sell. And if we say buy, that means we agree with it, and we're gonna justify why. And if we sell it, that means we don't, and we're gonna justify as well. So, um, I'm gonna let you get started, and I'm gonna let you get started on your first one, and I'll go from there. 100% agree. I'm selling as well. And you kind of explained all of it. Uh, like you said, I think there's better candidates. Not saying he's a bad player. Um, I just think there's better candidates. Patrick Mahomes, Daniel Jones is playing at a high level, and then you could also make an argument for Jonathan Taylor. But if Saquon Barkley wasn't going to win MVP, then I don't think Saquon will. But he definitely could has a high chance of winning Offensive Player of the Year. So there's that. But yeah, I'm selling on that hot take as well. And one of mine that I have is the Philadelphia Eagles are not a threat in the NFC. And I'm buying on that. I'm buying. Yes. Come playoff time, I don't think they're a threat. I think they're I think I think their defense is significantly taking a step down compared to their Super Bowl team last year. I don't think it is what it is. Last year they've had a lot of close games in which they barely squeaked out in. But that's mainly due to the lack of veteran on that team. But come playoff time, I don't think that's going to be the case. Obviously, they had a blowout win against New York, but it's it's the New York freaking Giants, man. Like, let's be real. At the end of the day, it's New York, and I know we were talking about them on the pod last week and how they can be good, but that loss against Denver really derailed them. I think that showed it against this week, and obviously with Cam Scattergood's injury. that kind of helped them defensively take care of New York right there. But in terms of the NFC, I think there's way better options out there that has a chance to, beat them. I think Seattle's a really deep team. I think they're very underrated. Their defense is, in my opinion, one of the best in the league. You have Los Angeles, who I think can be, who I think can beat them. They were a blocked field goal away from beating them in the regular season this year. I think they have a really good chance. You have obviously the Green Bay Packers. I don't know if they face each other at all in the regular season this year, but I think they match up very well with Philadelphia as well in terms of offense for Philly. I think what's the kind of mindset that they're going to have going into the playoffs in terms of offense. Obviously we know AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, but they've had struggles this year. Um, so I think you got to look into that as well come playoff time. And then obviously the Buccaneers, the Detroit Lions. The NFC is deeper than it's ever been. The past, compared to the past number of years, it's very deep. There's teams that who didn't make the playoffs last year who are now have 500 records. Um, so you have to look at the landscape of the NFC. And even though the Bucks aren't healthy, they're still a very good team. Uh, so you just got to look at the landscape of it. And when I look at the landscape, I think the Eagles, they're not the best team, in the NFC, in my opinion. And then I just don't think they're a threat compared to other teams. Like I think Seattle is a much bigger threat. Like if they were to play in the playoffs, I think that game would I would lean more towards Seattle in that department. Eagles fans ain't gonna agree with me, but hey, bring it on. Yeah, this is definitely a post that I will be posting on TikTok. Definitely, because this is my biggest one that I had. Um, and do you have other ones? All right, I'm gonna just do one more because I actually since I came up with it. Um, I'm gonna say we already talked about Drake May, but going into the AFC West, I'm going Broncos can win the AFC West, but they will not make it out the first round. Yes, and it honestly just depends on who they match up against. Like, don't correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't so who gets the first round bye in the play? So right now it would be the Indianapolis Colts. And So the Denver Broncos will be playing a wild card game, and Los Angeles Chargers. Okay. See, like that's a game that's like that's even right there. Like that's a game that they could lose, they could win, but it's not a definite that they can win that game. Like I'm not confident that they would win that. Like even though the Chargers are with Justin Herbert, even though they're not that good in the playoffs, it's a week by week basis in the NFL, and I think it all just depends, matchup wise. But Broncos, they made the playoffs last year, but coming into this year, I think this is a real possibility as well because the AFC is also pretty deep this year, which is good for the league. Both conferences are very deep, so you have teams coming in, but it really all just depends on whom they match up against. But the Broncos are definitely they can win one of the teams that can win their division but not make it out the first round. Um, and I'm not saying that uh, you know players on the team are necessarily bad. If I had to nitpick, it'd just be based off experience. Um, they're a very young team, but Sean Payton isn't. He's a vet, so I think that's one of their keys that they have in terms of positives when it comes to playoff experience. Uh, but yeah, that's just and this is buy or sell for a reason. Hot takes. So welcome to it. First one. So are you buying or selling? That's the easiest sell of my life. I'm gonna be so honest with you. Easiest sell of my life. Easiest sell of my life, but hey, that's what we're here for. So I'm glad that we got that out of the way. But we'll continue it next week, just is week by week basis. So, and we're gonna come back to these hot takes at the end of this regular season to see what goes on. But y'all, y'all, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this episode of Between the Lines. Um, Again, very glad to be back and doing this for my man Michael. So we're very excited about this week. Panthers, Packers, new week, new opportunity. Let's go get it done. And stay with us to keep up with content on Twitter, TikTok, and we'll be uploading this on YouTube. So we'll see y'all next week on episode 9. Peace, y'all.